I feel both speakers have made a plausible case for the space for God, given the incompleteness as yet of science. We cannot explain everything. Therefore, we certainly can't explain the whole of religion. If science does ever become complete, maybe we'll then be able to prove or disprove. It's not certain in either direction. What I haven't picked up is, okay, that's true, and there are various other things that you can't disprove, apart from the non-existence of God, is why positively, perhaps like myself, the two speakers prefer to believe in the existence of God rather than, say, Russell's example of a revolving green teapot on the opposite side of the sun that you can't see. You can show that there's space for religion, but what moves one towards the position that it is reasonable to believe in something worth calling God?
Well, let me say, first of all, I mean, there are lots of questions that, in principle, science cannot answer and never will be able to answer because of the self-limited nature of science. Science does not address questions of meaning and purpose in that sort of way. And those are quite meaningful questions to ask. Second thing I want to say is it is a bad theological mistake to simply invoke God as the explanation of things we can't otherwise explain. That's the God of the gaps. That God of the gaps is always a sort of Cheshire cat deity, fading away with the advance of knowledge, always over the next intellectual horizon. And of course, if God is a God at all, and the creator of the world, God is the God of the whole show, and holds the world in being. God is not a mysterious, invisible object among the other objects of the world. God has a different relationship to creation. That is, of course, very standard theology. And the idea that there might be such a God may be sparked by believing there's a divine mind behind the wonderful order of the world and that sort of thing. But of course, it's never going to be a proof, not going to be a knockdown proof. But to me, it's a satisfying intuition.
Well, I think it's worth saying three things. First of all, that we've known since Gödel that not everything that's true can be proven, even in mathematics, and certainly not in science. And science is never going to be complete. You know, what we show with these air molecules is not, oh, well, if only science knew a bit more about the equations, we'd be able to predict where we are. What it shows is that even if science completely understood the equations, it is a strong scientific result that you cannot, in principle, continue to know where every single one of those molecules is. When you come to positive reasons for believing in God, which is obviously terribly important, I think there are both... there are two separate questions, of course. There's why do individuals historically come to a belief in God, which is often for reasons of personal experience, for reasons of personal relationships, people that they know or like or admire, who've sort of sparked it off them. But intellectually, the belief in God offers an explanation and a means of understanding of a whole series of what seem to us, at any rate, to be facts about the world that are very difficult to make sense of in other ways. I say very difficult, not impossible. It may just be it just may be what they call a brute fact that the universe exists in such a rationally transparent way. It could be a brute fact that it's so colossally fine-tuned that the fundamental constants of nature, if they were even very slightly different, then not merely could no human life exist, but apparently no intelligent life could exist anywhere in the universe. It may be just a mistake that we think that there are absolute true moral intuitions. We may not know exactly what they are, but we're fairly sure that when we say torturing babies for fun is wrong, we are not simply making a statement about sociology. And that even if somebody were to say, but there's a tribe in, wherever it happens to be, Berkeley, that thinks that torturing babies for fun is okay, we would actually, however socially, and you produce any amount of data which showed that it was socially acceptable in that tribe, we would still want to say, no, that's wrong. Not, well, it's not socially acceptable in our tribe. There's this business of beauty that, why is mathematical beauty a reliable guide to the universe? What is this intuition of beauty that we get? Maybe it's all just, sex and evolution, but it really doesn't feel like that. So I think what we can say, and not even getting to the whole business of, you know, Jesus and Christianity and so forth, what we can say is that there are a load of pointers which, in the light of religious belief, or at least the Christian perspective that we have, the universe makes sense in a great many ways. As we say, we are committing ourselves to belief, knowing that it could logically be mistaken. It may be that all these strange things are accidents, but they do all sort of hang together.
I just wanted to follow up a bit on the question of compatibility of religious belief and science. And it does seem to me that as logical scientists, you may have problems with some of the illogical bits of religion. And I'd like to ask you more about that, particularly superstition, for instance. You know, how do you deal with the weaknesses of religion and the baggage that goes with it that are clearly illogical? And my second question is, in your book, do you ever bother to define, hopefully at the beginning, the word truth? Because this in itself is a word of great debate within the humanities that I come from. And the current thinking is the postmodernist thinking that there's no such thing as truth. There's only relative truth. I'm asking you that.
Just one point that they can't make decently, but I can. You ask what's in the book, it'll be on sale outside afterwards. Okay?
Yeah, sorry, I've spending intervention has made me feel what I was going to say. I've taken a correspondence view of truth. I think truth is not just a coherence view of the world. I think it is a correspondence view to the world. Of course, it's difficult to establish that, and there are problems about it. Almost all scientists, I think, are critical realists. I mean, doing science is hard work, and I don't think we'd really do it unless we thought we really were discovering at least something about what the world is actually like. And I think we have very good reasons for thinking we do that, one of which is this surprising element of science. We approach a phenomenon expecting it to behave in a certain way. It resists our expectation. It is recalcitrant to our expectation, and we are forced, it seems to me, by our encounter with the reality of the physical world, to change our thinking. The field of doing science, particularly at the fundamental level, is very much the field of discovery, not of confabulation, in some sort of sense. So I mean, I reject, as a scientist, I reject that postmodern critique. Of course, it's not straightforward. I say it's a critical realism. It's not a naive objectivity. And I would say the same thing about religious beliefs. That obviously, it's more difficult to discern these things. Of course, religion can be corrupted and full of superstition and foolish things and do terrible things. I mean, that's another thing. The Crusades and Inquisitions are part of the sad story of religion, not unique to religion. They originate in humanity. When Dawkins spends chapters on Crusades and Inquisitions and dismisses Pol Pot and Stalin and Hitler in a page or two, that's not a very balanced view of human nature or the history of the 20th century.
To answer your direct question, we don't define truth because what we're trying to do is giving responses to questions. And we had a big fight with our publishers about the subtitle because we want to be very clear that we're giving responses and not answers. We're not trying to lay down the law and say, you must believe this, this, and this about this, and this question because this is true. What we're trying to say is, this is how we would want to respond to these questions. This, if you like, gives a point of view. You may or may not agree with it, but at least, hopefully, you can see what it is. And you can see that it may or may not be, it may be a mistake, but it's not unreasonable.
I think we've got a little bit beyond that, Nicholas, to say we think you should give serious consideration to the possibility that it might be a fruitful point of view to adopt.
Moderate.